Certainly I have been following closely this past year what's been happening with our deflection center, and I've been watching closely as the numbers have been coming out, developments that have occurred, and I'll tell you that I've also received a lot of community feedback, but I certainly am not satisfied with what I'm seeing, and so it's time for some changes. And when it comes to my office and how we're going to start handling deflection and cases, I want to be clear that effective January the 5th of next year, we're going to start taking cases that, when an individual is picked up for some of these small possession amounts, certainly they'll still be brought to the deflection center, but we're going to demand accountability. We're going to be reviewing those cases, and if they either touch the door and leave, like we've seen about a third of the people do, or they go in, do the assessment, and then don't really follow through, my office is going to be prosecuting those people. Now, I want to be clear with what that means so that there's no misunderstanding. Prosecution is the next step. When we look at the overall of what deflection is and that whole process under 4002, the first step is deflection. The next step is what we call conditional discharge, and then we get to what we think of more traditionally as a criminal charge, which is prosecuted. So we are, really, this is about making sure that we have accountability on this, and that people are meaningfully engaging in treatment. And right now, we're really not seeing either of those. So my office is going to be very clear, and we've worked closely with Portland Police, with Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, and the Gresham Police Department in our discussions about this. But come January 5th, it's time to start having accountability. When we talk about what it means to meaningfully engage in treatment, certainly we're going to work with a whole host of individuals that have been involved in this process to make sure that people have access to resources, that they are given opportunities, and then from there we'll be assessing that to determine, are they actually taking steps to engage in that treatment in a way that this community can feel good about, that we're putting all this time, effort, and quite frankly a lot of money towards. Are we getting a return on that? Because we want to see people moving in the right direction here. But with that, I'm hopeful that these changes will bring us in line with what I'm seeing around the state, as I certainly have talked to a lot of my partners throughout the state to see how their programs are operating, and that we can get towards better results where we're seeing better outcomes for these individuals who, quite frankly, more than anything, what we want to see is them get to a healthy and sober and better place. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Vasquez,
yeah.
Nice to see you again. So was this a fear that maybe this wouldn't be working the way it was intended? I know in initial stories covering the deflection center and kind of looking ahead to how it would help people, there was a lot of skepticism that it might not work. Is this a fear that you had?
This is something that, I raised these concerns early on, and I said that without accountability, my fear, to be very direct, is that we would see this situation where we have had, I think to date, around 600 individuals, but we have very little to show for us as far as individuals meaningfully engaging in treatment. And so, yes, it's a concern and fear I've been raising.
For those who aren't very familiar with this topic, can you
Yeah.
break down how this plan is different from what we have in place now?
Yes. So right now, an individual that is, picked up, arrested on the streets, they're brought to our deflection center, they're dropped off, and essentially that ends it. That is the end of the court, police, any type of, that involvement. There is a very complex process where if they failed, if they walk away, but they're arrested again in another month, could they potentially be charged there? It is possible. I can tell you we've had 0 of those brought to my office. So how it's different now is going to be that every person that is brought to the deflection center, my office will be reviewing those reports. My office will be looking at, did that person actually engage in a meaningful way and do treatment that I think this community demands.
You mentioned what other counties are doing across the state. Well, in Lane County, they offer temporary housing to participants entering into the deflection programs such as this. Did you ever consider anything like that, trying to figure out if there was another way to go about maybe housing participants entering into the deflection program, rather than moving forward with criminal penalties for those
Yep.
that do not finish this program?
No, it's a great question, and I'll tell you that you got to remember, my half is the criminal justice side. That doesn't mean that I am turning away from or not considering or not looking at that. I am one piece, and there are many others, and I'll say that Commissioner Singleton put forward a plan that included a lot of what you're talking about, those housing points, and we're certainly open to that, and I want to see that, because any way that we can help individuals get stable and into a healthy and sober situation is going to be helping push this forward in a positive way that's meaningful to this community.
So what are your ballpark estimates? What estimates have you guys arrived at internally in terms of the number of prosecutions that this could amount to next year, and what resources that then would be, would resources be taken for those prosecutions?
Yeah, so, I mean, right now we can use last year, right? And will that number go up or down? I don't know, but last year we had 600 cases come in. My hope and expectation is that, we're going to have people be successful, so we won't be prosecuting. But if that number is 600, if that number is 500, 400, this office is going to step up, and we're going to be taking on those cases and looking to put them through. Again, the first step is conditional discharge, and that means there's a higher level of supervision, there's more eyes on the case. So my sincere hope is that we will see people with this added layer of accountability engage and actually be successful in a meaningful way. And I think that's been a lot of the criticism around is, what is success? How do we define that? And I'm always one that's going to say it means you have to meaningfully engage in treatment. That means making serious efforts. It means taking those steps that this community is looking for.
Why are you taking those steps now? Why weren't you doing that before?
Yeah. I'll tell you, just for the context and the background, is that this program got started before I took office. So I took office in January. This program started in the September before. And, essentially there is a whole group of folks that were putting that together. I explained to them at the time my reservations with the program, and I agreed that I would give it some time to be built up and see how it would work. That time has been given, and it's time for a change.
If someone doesn't complete deflection, who's going to be in charge of finding them and charging them if they, leave the building, as you say, the one who just touching the door? And then does the DA's office have the staff to be able to put the resources towards these possession of controlled substances cases?
So yes, we have the staff, and we'll take it. These are misdemeanors. These are not complex. This is not, this is not some in-depth, lengthy investigation. All of us could walk out right now into Old Town probably and see someone using fentanyl, and so it's not a difficult thing to do. As far as what happens when someone fails to go through with it, those reports will come to my office, and either they will have a citation to appear at a future court date, or if the other route would be that a warrant would be issued for their arrest. Those are the two options.
Since the county and the Criminal Justice Commission work to put together the current deflection program, can you explain how you can just make this plan unilaterally? Yeah,
so to be clear, the decision about whether to prosecute or not prosecute, that remains solely with the district attorney. That is how it is throughout the state of Oregon. That's nothing new or novel. And so that is what's happening here, is that decision is essentially, I'm directing that decision. When we talk about deflection as a whole, what we're talking about are all the things that go into that. So in other words, in Multnomah County, we have decided we're going to put together a deflection center. And so the county has put together this whole center, received, it's approximately $6 million, give or take some money there, to create this center and a program. And then the question about delivery of services. There's lots of agencies throughout the county. There's the housing department. There's certainly the health department. There's all these other agencies within the county that can provide all of that back-end stuff. For me, it's a decision of does my office prosecute or not? And so when we don't prosecute, it's because someone is meaningfully engaging in treatment.
Can I ask something? Have you checked with the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office to find out how this will impact them in terms of available jail beds? And then if I could backtrack off of other questions, Their addiction medicine specialists seem to say now that, addiction is a health issue and shouldn't be considered a criminal justice issue. And I'm curious what your take on that is.
Okay, 2 questions there.
Yes.
So let's break them down one at a time. With the sheriff first, we're not talking about, these people aren't going in, and the 600 people, we're not talking about them getting held in long periods of time. A lot of times they are, with a citation to appear, they're never even touching the jailhouse. So what's happening, though, is there will be times where people will be booked in and released. These are the types of crimes where I know the sheriff has said that she will book, but they're not ones that I am seeing under our current release guidelines that they're going to be held for long periods of time. So I don't anticipate that the impact on the jail will be that heavy. Now, on the question of, why don't you repeat that second one so I make sure I get it all correct?
Yeah, I think the prevailing knowledge now is that, addiction is very much a health issue. It shouldn't be considered a crime or a criminal justice issue. And so how do you navigate that?
Well, I would broaden that a bit in that, yes, I understand the health part of it. It certainly has a larger social impact as well, though. And the way that I would say it is, look, if this community and this our amazing country and state, if we can come up with a health system that can deal with addiction, that can take people and get them through, and basically so there's no involvement with the criminal justice system, all the better. We would welcome that, but currently that doesn't exist. And so what we have is a situation where, we tried basically the Measure 110 approach of no involvement of the criminal justice system. It didn't work. We saw record overdose deaths. And so we are at a place now where we're kind of trying to balance out different approaches. And trust me, when I say that we are going to do everything we can to see individuals get into treatment, our goal is not to put people in jail. It is to get people to treatment.
Since the county has handled deflection and the data regards to deflection, how will you know when someone has meaningfully engaged for that 90 days? Will you guys maintain communication and keep those records? Yeah, we will certainly maintain communication, stay involved, and then here's how it's going to work. We're going to get the case in, and we anticipate that either they are going to tell us in 90 days that person successfully completed or not. And if we don't hear, then we're going to proceed with the case.
I wanted to ask you about the letter from the 3 district attorneys here to the Department of Homeland Security.
Okay, we're switching topics. All right. Yeah.
It says in the press release that the letter essentially says that the DA's offices are monitoring federal conduct and will investigate any case where a federal officer appears to be acting outside the reasonable scope of their duties. Is the DA's office here investigating any such specific cases?
This, I'll tell you, has come out of, I've received a lot of information from the community, a lot of concern, and I've seen a lot of concerning things. And certainly what I want is for our community to be safe and to feel that, there are no officers of any type that are using unreasonable force. And so right now I have not received any formal investigations, and we don't have any open cases currently. This is an effort to try to encourage the federal authorities to what we see as be more responsible in certain activities that they're taking. We want individuals to be treated fairly and appropriately, and we want to make sure that no one is subject to excessive force.
But just make sure I understand. So the DA's office would be able to prosecute a federal officer who, say, uses excessive force while executing?
So, very complex question. So, we have to look to the Supremacy Clause of the United States Constitution. And under that, what happens is that it puts out that there's a certain amount of immunity for federal officers as long as they are acting in a manner where they reasonably believe that they are acting under the authority or under their duties. So it puts a high bar. It is, but it's not. It's one that it's important for us to continue to monitor and watch. And of course, I want to push on the federal authorities to take appropriate actions and to make sure that, first of all, the federal agents that are coming into our community, are they properly trained? Are they taking actions which, all of us would look at and hopefully say that was not excessive force, right? And so we're going to continue to push on them to make sure that we can do everything we can, because it is difficult to stand by as someone who is dedicated to the safety of this community and watch events and feel like we could be doing more.
You said that Multnomah County has the tools, funding, and collective expertise to build a deflection system that truly meets the needs of people struggling with addiction now. how can you say that that was in the release that we have now? So
Mhm.
how can you say that now with what you're sharing with us today? How do you know that?
About the
Because
tools?
Yes, with the tools that you have now. How can you say that now? We thought that you guys had the tools then.
Oh, I think we had the tools then. I think it's a matter of, do we have the system built that actually is designed in a manner that has accountability and actually works to connect people to those tools and resources. So it's not like we haven't had a Department of Homeless Services that didn't have a $400 million budget. It's not like we didn't have a county health department that didn't have a $400 million budget. We've had the resources. We just haven't had the accountability and really the system designed to make sure that we can get people connected to that. I mean, I'll always say that people suffering from substance use disorder, it's a very challenging topic, and there are no easy answers, for sure. And success is oftentimes in fits and starts, and there are a lot of different routes to treatment, but we should be doing everything we can to help that process.
Your plan sounds similar to Clackamas County's plan in that it's a bit more punitive. Why follow the mold of a county like that when Multnomah County's data shows that Multnomah County is actually doing the best when it comes to deflection?
Couple of things. I don't think it's more punitive, our approach. And second is that when we talk about Multnomah County's data, what you see is we have a lot of people going in, but it's about what we define as success. And right now, the definition of success in Multnomah County is extremely low. And what I am concerned about is not how do we put people through and get nice numbers. What I'm concerned about is how do we get meaningful engagement and treatment by individuals that we're coming into contact with.
I was just going to ask, so we know that County Commissioner Singleton put out a plan which wants to sort of connect people to housing and resources, and you've got this plan that says we need accountability. Do you feel like those things are conflicting, or can they coexist?
Oh, I think they work tandem, hand in hand, because from my definition and what I'm seeing is, and what Commissioner Singleton put out particularly was, she said, hey, we know a lot of people that we're coming into contact with are struggling with housing issues. And when we see people get more stable in their lives, they have better opportunities to engage in treatment, they have better opportunities to get to sober. There's just all kinds of benefits that can come from that. And certainly, I am 100% open to looking at all options that get people to a healthier place.
And so what needs to happen before January 5th to make all this happen, to have more accountability and working well with other community partners within Multnomah County to make sure that we have more success?
Well, what's going to happen is the police and the district attorneys will work together on the accountability piece, on reports and citations and all of that. We certainly will work with our county partners on how to communicate the efforts that are being made to connect people with treatment. In the end, right now, the way our system is structured, it is actually the responsibility of that individual who comes in and who is charged with possession of a controlled substance, that if they want to be deflected, they need to take those actions. That's the way the state legislature put it out. I think it is incumbent upon our community to try to help provide some of those opportunities, but it's incumbent upon those individuals to really take the steps. And the way I've always approached this is it's a bit of a push and a pull. Yes, we want to help push them to the right direction. We should also be there to pull them up as well.
Does the Multnomah County leadership, like the chair and commissioners, know that this is going to happen?
Yes, we have presented a detailed memorandum to them outlining all of this and explaining to them that this is the direction we're taking.
And they're in support of it?
You'll have to ask them that. I think that there's probably a mix. I certainly know that in speaking with the law enforcement partners, they're in support. They want to see change, and I know that the community is.
So go back to what you said a minute ago. You said, we've had the resources, we just haven't had the accountability. Can you expand on what you mean by that? Because you're the person responsible for your office prosecutes, but it sounds like you're saying the deflection program just hasn't worked in your mind.
Yeah, I don't believe in Multnomah County it has. When I look at it, the bottom line is that what I see is very, very little evidence of anyone actually engaging in meaningful treatment. Very little evidence of that. What I see is when you talk about the numbers, 1/3 of the people left without even doing an assessment. The remaining amount go in and do an assessment, and of those that did an assessment, I think it's 18% that are quote-unquote successful. The definition of success, then, is something that is very limited. So what we've heard are a few anecdotal folks out of the 600 that have been, made life changes. So right now I'm looking at that, and what I hear from the community is that $6 million of investment for just a handful of people that actually got in treatment is not a good use of taxpayer dollars.
So you're saying basically the problem is that they don't touch your office, they don't touch the criminal justice system under the current setup, really?
I'm not saying that's the problem. I'm saying it's a missing component right now. There's two missing components. It's front end and back end. Accountability needs to be there for sure. And the back end is we need to see meaningful engagement and treatment. That comes both with the individual and also with the systems in place that are providing that opportunity.
Anybody else?
This all starts January 5th?
That's our date.
Anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think you've covered it well with many questions today. Many questions.
Later.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you.